2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
Republican Representative Michael Schraa of Oshkosh is seeking re-election in the 53rd Assembly District. Representative, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Good to be here, Steve.
Standard question for all incumbents. If you're re-elected, top priority in the next session?
Top priorities. Well, as the Chair of Corrections, I will be working, I'm sure, with Evan Goyke. We worked very well together on the juvenile corrections bill. And I think we have to look at adult corrections, so we've got some ideas there that we're going to be working together if we are both reelected. I have a PBM bill, public or a pharmacy benefit manager reform bill that I think is very important with the price of prescriptions just skyrocketing all over the country, but I think we can do some more to make prescriptions more affordable in the state of Wisconsin. And then probably my last biggest one is a homelessness bill that I've been working with some constituents, a different model. We deal with homelessness and a lot of federal money comes in, but we always seem to see the same people homeless. And there's some different models across the country, and actually one in Wisconsin that we would like to mimic and make better. And so those probably are my three top.
You're in the middle of the discussion over the next Department of Corrections budget.
Right.
And converting our juvenile prisons and potential regional juvenile facilities. But a big issue is whether we need a new state prison with Waupun and Green Bay built in the 1800s. Right. Representative Stephan wants a new prison in the Green Bay area. I think a benchmark question is, do we need a new state prison authorized in the next state budget?
Are you asking me if I would build a new prison?
Yes.
Or do we need to build a new prison?
Would you build a new prison?
That is a tough question, because I can tell you with 24,000 inmates and our capacity is about 19,000, we're way over capacity. I think it's becoming a dangerous situation for our correctional officers. And I've been all over the country to different seminars, going to correctional seminars all over the country. And other states, you got Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, they're all closing down prisons. So it's frustrating for me that we're taking kind of a different approach in Wisconsin. And I think we really have to look strongly. I mean, we're talking about probably a $350 million outlay for a new prison. Yes, we have two prisons. Waupun was built in 1853, I believe. It's actually one of the oldest prisons in the United States. So facility-wise, and I do serve on the DOC facility committee that we've been meeting all summer, and we do have a report that's coming out next month that will kind of, I think, open our eyes a little bit more as to, what route we need to go. But I would like to see us moving in the opposite direction and not building a new prison, but out of necessity, we may have to.
Part of this issue travels with the questions of, do we legalize recreational marijuana and medical marijuana? This is part of the criminal justice debate. Your positions?
I believe I was only one of 4 Republicans to vote for the decriminalization bill that Representative Jarko came out with. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere. So medically, and we passed CBD oil, medically I think that we need to take a look at that. I think there are a lot of benefits that could come. The problem is I don't believe our caucus is anywhere near close to approving anything like that. So I may have some different views on it, but realistically, I think we're still a few years away. Maybe medical use could come into play in the next session. I'm not sure.
You voted for a budget that provided a pretty significant increase in state aid for our K-12 public schools. Some administrators and other school officials say it's not enough. We need another big increase in the next budget. Do we?
I stay so focused on correctional issues. I can tell you that I attend almost every CESA 6 meeting, and all the administrators from the CESA 6 district are there, and I know there's probably not one of them that's not asking us for more money. With a record $650 million, I know we're all very strong on education, and going back to Act 10, where some funding was cut for education because of economic reasons, we've put more money into education in this last budget than we did back in 2010. But our education system is so vitally important, and we need educated kids, so. I'm not going to give you an answer there. I'm sure that there will probably be an increase in education funding just because some of our revenue numbers are up. And, depending on if we have to build a new prison, that's going to affect our budget. But I would say that you're going to continue to see funding for education continue to grow.
Voucher and choice program has grown. Should it expand more?
I want to look at the numbers closer. I believe that the reason that we have vouchers is because we want all kids to be educated, whether they come from a rich family or a poor family. And so I think the voucher expansion has been positive. I know in my district, a number of schools have seen the increase in voucher kids. You go on the opposite end of the scale, and people that support public education generally do not think that vouchers are a good idea. My bottom line is I want the kids to be educated, whether it's in a voucher school, a charter school, or a public school. I want them to get the best education that they possibly can get.
The tax breaks, tax incentives for Foxconn, and the Assembly also voted for similar tax breaks for Kimberly-Clark. What should be the criteria going forward for when state government should offer tax breaks, tax incentives to private businesses?
Foxconn is a whole different, in my opinion, a whole different animal. When you're talking about Kimberly-Clark, I actually reluctantly voted for that bill. I don't believe in corporate handouts, and especially in an industry that is not state of the art. I mean, Foxconn has got so much potential. The campus alone will be the largest technology campus I believe in the world, and for sure in the United States. And I think it will develop a whole area down in that southern part of the state. It'll be very similar to a Silicon Valley in California, where you're going to see a lot of different businesses, grow off of that Foxconn, having Foxconn come in. But I don't know that it's government's role to keep businesses in. I think free market should play an effect, and I think in a lot of times it does. So I think government should take a real limited role in trying to keep businesses in the state.
The impasse now years long in terms of how we pay for highways. How would you break that impasse? If you had a plan, what would it be?
Well, I can tell you that the governor is still very opposed to any gas tax increase. In the beginning of the session, I was opposed also. And I can tell you I had a couple listening sessions, and I just did some numbers and threw it out to people. And the first question I asked when I first got into the meeting was, how many of you would support a gas tax increase? And there were 40 people in the room, and maybe 4 or 5 hands went up.
Only 4 or 5.
When I actually explained to them that a nickel gas tax increase over the 600 gallons on average that somebody is going to buy in a year, it's only going to equate to about a $25 to $30 hit for each of those individuals. When I actually explained it in those terms, and I asked again, 95% of the hands went up and said they'd support it. So I think it's educating the public. I don't like tax increases, but we've got vehicles now that are getting double the gas mileage, and the gas tax that was set up with vehicles getting lower gas mileage and not enough revenues coming in. I think that we'll take a look at tolling, strongly. I think that's an option that we have to look at. I'm not a big fan of wheel taxes, but I think everything needs to be on the table.
Local governments have been living with the levy limits for 14 years. Some local officials say it hurts their ability to provide local services. Keep levy limits to control property taxes, dial them back, or get rid of them?
I think we got to keep them. And in my district, some of the municipalities have been able to raise their levy because of some of the new construction growth that has gone on, which is allowed under state law. So at least in my district, and I know there's a couple, there's one city in particular that would love to be able to not have a levy limit, but for the most part, I think with this economy, I don't think we need to touch it at this point.
Let's talk about healthcare, which I know you're hearing about. How do we protect and potentially expand healthcare in rural Wisconsin?
Well, in the last budget, I know there were some incentives to offer tuition reimbursement to some of the individuals if they'd move into a rural area.
Yeah.
That's tough, Steve, because we have problems with not enough nurses and doctors in the urban areas, let alone the rural areas. So I think it comes down to recruiting. I know that our doctor has tried to recruit my 16-year-old daughter to go into psychiatry. At 16, she's saying, look at this and study it in college because you will get a job, as soon as you graduate. So I think there just needs to be better recruiting from, some of the bigger hospitals. And but I don't know how much of a role government can play in bringing doctors and nurses to rural areas. I don't know that that's government's role.
The pilot program between state government and Delta Dental that provides dental care for low-income people in some regions, should that be a priority in the next Medicaid budget?
Yeah, because I have actually visited a couple of these clinics, and I can tell you that they could be double the size. There's so many people that are not getting good oral care, and that I think is something that a lot of us support in our caucus, and I think it more than likely will be visited this next legislative session, and I would support it.
Are you hearing from your constituents about the issue of caregivers? AARP estimates that 578,000 Wisconsin residents are caregivers for family members, neighbors, people they love. Would you support laws or regulations that call for hospitals to recognize family caregivers when their loved ones are hospitalized? Is this an issue?
I haven't been lobbied at all on that from either side.
Okay.
I can tell you that I had a brother who was in a motor vehicle accident, and my mother became his caretaker. And so I know the importance of having individuals in their homes, and so I would really have to look at all the details and look at the bill before I'd say yes or no to whether I'd support something.
Understand. Final question, differences with your opponent on November 6th?
I don't know a lot about my opponent, but I can tell you that my experience last session on joint finance was invaluable. My experience in my role as the chair of corrections, it's just given me an ability to, I've visited dozens of correctional facilities. My goal is to try to visit every one. So I've gained so much wealth of knowledge, by just getting my hands dirty and diving into this issue regarding correction. So probably, my experience just being in the assembly. But other than that, we'll have a debate in October, but I don't know a whole lot about my opponent.
Thank you. Republican Representative Michael Schraa of Oshkosh is seeking re-election in the 53rd Assembly District. The election is November 6th. Representative, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.